Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Caroline, and today's video is going to be the books that I read in July. I feel awkward that I'm not holding anything, so I'm just gonna hold the books. I read 8 books in July, 2 on my Kindle, 6 on paper, and I think July was a really good reading month. I read more books in June, but I definitely read better books, I think, in July, and I started series that I'm excited to continue. So I'm very excited, but without further ado, let's start. I'm just using my notes app so I can read my thoughts, by the way. I'm not trying to ignore y'all and be on my phone. The very first book I read was The House Across the Lake. The House Across the Lake is about a woman, and she lives on this lake, and she lives alone in this house, and there's only like 6 houses, I think, on this lake. And the house across from her is this couple. And they have one of those houses where it's like all glass, like totally like a fishbowl effect. So she can see every single room and see what's going on. And she's noticed some weird things going on in this house. And she does own a pair of binoculars, and so she may or may not have pulled those binoculars out and started watching this couple. And that's all I'm going to say, because I don't want to spoil it, and I think thrillers are better when you don't know everything. But I really liked this book. I liked the vibes particularly. It had very creepy vibes. I really liked that. I definitely want to read more of Riley Sager just because of the vibes. Like, it had this very creepy feel that anything could go on in this lake, or like anything could go on like in those houses and no one would know. It was very creepy. The plot twist was not my favorite. I just didn't like the ending. I thought the plot twist was weird. I feel like he could have come up with a better plot twist than the one that he chose. Another thing that was my favorite is there was like a part at the middle to the end where it was just a lot of explanation. He was just telling it how it was instead of like things panning out and you finding things out. So that also was my favorite. But overall, I thought it was good. 3.75. I definitely want to read more of his books because I can definitely see myself liking his writing. I really like his writing style. I just didn't like that particular like plot. I didn't really like the plot of House Across the Lake. Next up, I read A Million Kisses in Your Lifetime, and I read this in a reading vlog a few weeks ago. The thumbnail is me holding this book, so you'll know it when you see it. This is about Fern and Crew. They're both like very popular in their grade. They're in boarding school, and Fern is like this good girl. She's really innocent. Crew's kind of a player, and he's always like kind of been obsessed with her. He's always liked her. And so yeah, it's like a romance set in boarding school, their senior year. I rated this a 3.5. I liked it. I really liked the concept. I liked like the tropes that were going on. I liked how it was set at boarding school, but I felt like it was way too long for a romance. I think like something more had to have happened for it to have been this long, but like, I got to a point and I was just like nothing, it was just a lot of, like, drawn out scenes, I think. And, yeah, it did, I don't think it needed to be this long. And I also thought it was a bit cliche. Like, a few of the things, like, they hinted at so much that it was, like, obvious something was going on. Like, everyone should have known it was going on. But then the characters were still surprised by certain things that I felt like were obvious. But I liked the concept. And so I enjoyed reading it overall. But then when I got halfway, I was just kind of tired of it. I definitely liked the first half better than the second half. Next up, I read another book on my Kindle. I read Powerless. This is the 3rd book in the Chestnut Spring series. Powerless is between Sloane and Jasper. Sloane is a ballerina, and Jasper is a hockey player. And they are childhood best friends to lovers, and they're like friends to lovers. I rated this a 3 stars. It was not my favorite. I just didn't like it. I'm saying it was not my favorite, but I didn't like it. I don't regret reading it. It had good parts, and I like the Chestnut Springs like series as a whole, and so I like all the other characters, and I like the interactions between characters, and I like the family feel, and I like Chestnut Springs. I didn't connect to either of those characters. I didn't find his job particularly interesting. I didn't find her job particularly interesting, and I didn't really care about the characters. Like, Flawless has been my favorite so far. I loved Flawless. I cared about those characters. I felt it when, like, I felt sad when they felt sad. but I just didn't really connect with these characters. But I'm still going to finish the series for sure. Next, I read Addicted After All. Rated this 3.75. I thought this was a little long for my liking. I mean, at this point, people are just reading this series, you know, for like the characters. Not every scene is totally necessary, but that's kind of the point, you know. But I did really like it. It had been a really long time since I read, I think it's been like since December or something crazy like that, since I had read the one before this, since I'd read an Addicted to You / Calloway's sisters book. But this like reimbursed me into the world and made me very excited to continue. By the way, this is the 7th? This is the 7th book in the Addicted to You / Calloway Sisters series. I'm reading them intertwined, by the way. The things I particularly liked about this book is Lo and Connor's friendship was so strong. They had some deep conversations that benefited their friendship, and I thought it was really sweet. And so I really liked that. I think I even tabbed it. I think that's what my tab is. But then I also liked, at the very end, 2 new characters were introduced, or they were introduced earlier in the book, but 2 characters were introduced, and at the end, they sort of like hint at a relationship between them, which made me so excited because I feel like that relationship will continue in the future books. And at this point, I was like excited for new characters because obviously I love like the 6 of them, but like new characters are still exciting. So I was really excited about those 2 characters because I think we'll have like a little new relationship on the side going on for the next few books. All right, next up is One Italian Summer. I have a lot to say about this book. I wrote like a paragraph. It's about Katie, whose mom dies, and she goes on a trip to Italy that she had always planned on going with her mom. And when she gets there, she sees her mom, but she's 30 years old, so she's Katie's age, and it's like pretty wild. But so it's a story about grief, about Katie grieving her mom. I also rated this one 3.75. I loved In 5 Years. If you've seen my May reading wrap-up, you know I was obsessed with that book, which is also by Rebecca Searle. So I kind of had high expectations going into this book, but they weren't met. It was not as good as In 5 Years, but it still had that good writing style that I love from her. You can tell I tabbed a ton because there were so many like good parts or like good quotes. Let me read y'all what I wrote for like my Goodreads review. Rebecca Searle always wows me with her beautiful writing. I didn't like this one as much as In 5 Years simply because I had a hard time relating to it. However, it made me desperately want to visit Hotel Poseidon, and I enjoyed all of the beautiful messages. Also has a similar aesthetic to Mamma Mia too. It definitely made me want to visit Italy. And then I thought this was really interesting. The book is set, like Katie goes to Hotel Poseidon, which is a hotel in Italy, and there's like the staff there, and like she spends a lot of time there and she grows connections there. But apparently Hotel Poseidon is an actual place that the author visited, which is really cool. She printed her emails at the end of the book that she had with like the owner of Hotel Poseidon, I think. But I just thought that was so cool. So basically, Rebecca Searle went to Italy, visited this Hotel Poseidon, and was so like inspired by it that she then wrote a book and had the setting be Hotel Poseidon. I just thought that was so cool. I enjoyed reading the emails at the end. So if you're going to Italy, definitely read this book. And also, if you want to read a book about grief and a relationship between a mother and daughter, this is also very good. So 3.75 wasn't my favorite, but still enjoyed and found a lot of good book quotes. The next book I read is This Is Where It Ends. This Is Where It Ends is about a school shooting. It is multiple POVs, like a lot of point of views, and it also all takes place in the span of 24 hours, which I was a little wary about going into it because I was like, well, how much can really happen in 24 hours? It's going to be so boring. But it actually made it so engaging and made it such a page turner. I rated this 4.5 stars. I thought it was really good. I definitely teared up a few times. Check the trigger warnings. But it was so good. I loved how there were multiple point of views, so it made it really engaging, and so you got different perspectives on the same events. Next, I read It Happened One Summer, which I loved so much. I did not expect to like this book as much as I did. It Happened One Summer is between Piper and Brendan. Piper is like this like influencer, fashionista, public figure from LA, and Brendan is a fisherman who lives in Westport, Washington. And Piper gets herself arrested, and her stepfather has had enough of her shenanigans, and he sends her to Westport, Washington with her sister, to her late father's bar to like kind of run the bar. And it's kind of a punishment, but it's also like he thinks she needs to be in like the real world for a bit. She needs to become more independent, you know, make her own money. And she meets Brendan, and they do not hit it off at first. It's not really enemies to lovers, but it's a little bit of enemies to lovers. It's definitely Grumpy and Sunshine. But I really liked this book. I thought this setting was really cool. I've visited Washington before, and it was incredible. And so this made me kind of reminisce on my trip. I loved Brendan. He had great communication skills. He was just full of green flags. I loved him so much. And I just loved all the characters. This was very character driven. But I really liked it. I rated it a 4.25 stars. It did get slow every once in a while. That's why it's a 4.25 and not like higher. Because I don't know, romance books like this, it's hard to rate like a 5 stars. I feel like 5 stars are like made me cry, made me contemplate life, you know, not just a romance. But this is really good. I really like this, and it made me so excited to read Hook, Line, and Sinker, which is the second between Hannah and Fox, which are characters introduced in this book. Alright, the very last book that I read in July was the very first Bridgerton book, The Duke and I. This is between Daphne and Simon. Daphne is looking for a husband, and Simon does not want to marry at all. And all of the mothers in the Ton, which is like high society London, are shoving their daughters towards him and want him to marry one of them, and they're just all like, you know, like irritating him, I guess. And so they strike up a deal that they will pretend to court each other, so that Daphne can attract the attention of other men, because if she looks desired by the Duke, which he's the Duke of Hastings, then like more men will want to propose to her. And then he wants to fake court her because it'll get like all the moms off his back. Like people will stop, you know, introducing their daughters to him and trying to get him to marry someone, because they'll think he's taken. And so it's a fake dating trope, and it's set in the 1800s. And it was really good. I really liked it. I liked the first half better, because the second half got a little tedious in my opinion. And I thought Simon was really stubborn. I'm not going to say why, but he was not the most likable person, I think. I loved Daphne so much. She was like this strong-willed woman who, especially during the time like that it was, she stood up for herself. She told him how she felt about certain things, and so I really liked her. Can y'all tell I'm like losing my voice because I'm talking so much? I rated it 4.25. So same as It Happened One Summer. But I really liked it. It was good. I definitely want to continue this series, because I love books set in the 1800s. Like, I've just discovered this about myself. I loved the aesthetic of this, and I loved the Bridgertons so much. Oh my goodness, Violet Bridgerton was she was just the best mother ever. I loved her. And the brothers, like Anthony, Benedict, Colin, I loved them so much. I just loved the Bridgertons. So I'm excited to read more of their books and see like the family dynamic. And so the brothers were really funny because they're all very protective of Daphne. Alright you guys, that is going to be the end of this video. Those are the 8 books that I read in July. Comment down below how many books that you read in July and what your favorite one was that you read. I will see you guys next time, and I'm excited for August. Hopefully it's a good reading month. Bye!